So at the start of May, we received some pretty interesting statistics, which I'd like to share with you now. The idea that the top 3 best-selling games on PlayStation in April of this year was Oblivion Remastered, Minecraft, and Forza Horizon 5, with those all being Xbox or Microsoft-produced games. Now, putting to one side the hilarious fact that literally none of these games are PlayStation games, meaning that PlayStation gamers are that starved for content that they're willing to buy Xbox games. And I want to point out as well that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like 90% of PlayStation gamers are just ordinary people who don't shill for the company, and they just want to play games on their PlayStation, and they shouldn't be attacked for that. However, to the PlayStation fanboys, it's pretty funny because I just imagine Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin when looking at them. You've become the very thing you swore to destroy. You hate Xbox and now you buy Xbox games. But putting the whole console war aside, I think this is actually a pretty good thing that Microsoft is doing. Now, obviously they're pissing me off in quite a lot of other areas, such as increasing the prices of their games to $80. However, in theory at least, I actually really enjoy what Microsoft is doing. They're bringing all of their games to different platforms, however they are making their games generally cheaper and more accessible on the Xbox with things like Game Pass. Meaning that literally everyone wins in this scenario. PlayStation gamers win because Sony takes a cut of the overall revenue generated, and also PlayStation gamers have access to Xbox games. Xbox gamers and Microsoft win because Microsoft is earning overall a larger sum of revenue, which they can then use to make more Xbox games, as well as better Xbox hardware. And PC gamers win because Sony and Microsoft is earning more money overall, which results in more PlayStation and Xbox games for us. Literally everyone wins in this scenario, except for maybe Switch owners, but even then, that could very well change with the release of the Switch 2, since that thing actually has pretty decent hardware. Without wishing to sound like Harmon Smith here, this confirms what I've been saying to be true for a very long time. The idea that console exclusives are bad for the industry, and if you were to simply bring all of your exclusives onto other platforms, everything would improve. However, whilst the sound-minded individual that you are watching this video could probably have understood this for yourself, the message didn't reach the console fanboys, and today we're gonna take a look at the most angry PS5 owners, try and somehow convince you that all of what I just said is somehow a bad thing. A situation that is literally a good thing for every single gamer except for maybe Switch owners. That's somehow a W for PlayStation and an L for everyone else. Let's begin. Mickey says, Oblivion was never a Microsoft exclusive. The original launched on all platforms. No. Oblivion was originally scheduled to launch in late 2005. However, it was delayed to March 2006 for Windows PCs and the Xbox 360, where it was then ported to the PS3 in 2007. Like a 5-second Google search already disproved your narrative, but hey, I wouldn't expect basic reading comprehension from a fanboy. But also, what exactly is your point trying to prove here? Because you do realize that Microsoft owns Bethesda, right? Like, they didn't have to bring the game to Windows PCs or the PlayStation at all. They chose to do that, and it's a good thing that they did do that, because it benefits everyone. I just don't know what point you're trying to make here. Edgar Ramos says, Lamau, how is this a win for Xbox? That just means the console is now useless. Buddy, you do realize that literally all 3 of the games that topped the PlayStation sales are on Game Pass, right? Like, how does that make Xbox useless? They can play all of these games and a large variety of these games for a much cheaper price. And also, how the fuck does this make the Xbox useless? By selling more games on more platforms, Microsoft makes more money, which they can then use to make more games and better hardware, and this benefits Xbox as a platform. Is this making sense to you yet? Also, I love that you say that Xbox is useless, meanwhile literally every massive exclusive to PlayStation has come to the PC. But I feel like you're not gonna keep that same energy, are you? Joey says, not a fan of none of them. So you're a fan of all of them then? Like, that's how English works. But joking aside, you don't have to be a fan of those games, but you can't deny that they sold incredibly well on PlayStation. And that's kind of the point. It doesn't matter whether you love or hate these games, the point is they generate a lot of revenue. Viz says, and PlayStation takes a 30% cut on every sale. They're very happy about it. Okay, and who takes the other 70%? 'Cause methinks it's Microsoft. And this is a very good thing for Microsoft because 70% of a much larger number can still earn them more revenue. It's basic mathematics. 100% of 100 is still 100. However, 70% of 200 is 140, and that's a bigger number, which is something that Microsoft would want. This benefits everyone, not just Sony. It's weird that you can't acknowledge that. K-Alex responds and says, Xbox is a third-party publisher at this point. At this point? Buddy, they've been a third-party publisher for a long-ass time now. And also, funnily enough, so have Sony. Like, Sony are releasing their games to PC, like they are basically a third-party publisher at this point as well. If you're using this as like Xbox is a third-party publisher, they've lost the console war, then I'd encourage you to keep that same energy with Sony, but I feel like you're not gonna do that. But if you weren't trying to be a console fanboy and you were just pointing out that they are a third-party publisher, I would have to ask, have you been living under a rock for the last, like, God knows how many years? S-Bit Eric says the PS5 is the best Xbox console. Actually, I think you'll find that the PC is the best Xbox console because not only do we have literally every single Xbox game under the sun, however, we also have every single PlayStation and Nintendo game under the sun. Also, we have Game Pass. Like, we literally have Game Pass, which is something the PS5 doesn't have. Yeah, I think you'll find, by your own logic, PC is the best Xbox console. Christian says, some people are saying this is a win for Xbox. I don't think so. This isn't causing people to move to Xbox, it's a win for Microsoft. There is a difference. Microsoft probably realized they would profit more from owning game studios and release on multiple platforms. Well, breaking it down one by one, it's a win for Microsoft but not a win for Xbox. My guy, you do know who makes Xbox games, right? You know who makes Xbox hardware, right? You know who's making the upcoming Xbox handheld, right? How the fuck is it a win for the corporation who makes Xbox hardware, but it's somehow not a win for the Xbox consumers? But to give credit where credit's due, you're completely right with the second part of your statement, the idea that Microsoft has realized that they are going to earn more money by bringing their games to other hardware. Which ultimately begs the question, are you gonna keep that same energy when Sony does it? Because PlayStation fanboys tend to have a weird double standard, where when games go to the PlayStation, they're like, oh, this is a win for PlayStation, guys. But then when Sony brings PlayStation games to PC, they're like, oh, PC gamers, oh, they just pirate games. Oh, Sony, why are you bringing these games to that platform? You should keep the game on our platform. King Roblo says, wow, Sony won. Actually, I think you'll find that everyone wins in this situation, not just Sony, but hey, way to give the game away, I suppose. Like, if you unironically can't appreciate that this is a win for literally every type of gamer other than maybe Switch players, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, you're just a blatant corporate shill at that point. But also, can we appreciate the irony in what they said? Oh, Sony won by bringing Xbox games to PlayStation. It's almost as if you were acknowledging that PlayStation has fuck all games at the moment, and bringing other platforms' games to your platform is somehow a win. Almost as if you should take the boot out of your mouth and demand better games from Sony. Lord Blizzard says, where else are people supposed to play these games if no one is buying Xboxes? Ah yes, no one is buying Xboxes. Absolutely no Xbox Series S or X's have been sold in the last few years. Also, absolutely no one uses Game Pass. Like, no, Game Pass is extinct apparently. Also, let's just ignore PC gaming, I suppose, which is an infinitely larger platform than PlayStation, and matter of fact, we have every Xbox game and PlayStation game. This really isn't the argument you were expecting to make. Bimmy replies and says, there are so few games that Minecraft is still on top, even though Minecraft is literally number 2. Like, it's sitting behind Elder Scrolls Oblivion, which came out literally like a week ago or some shit. The fact that a Microsoft-produced game somehow toppled fucking Minecraft is a testament that there are indeed good games being released by Xbox developers. Little ironic as well that a PlayStation gamer of all people is going to somehow criticize other developers for not having enough games. even though Sony remasters more games than fucking Nintendo at this point. David replies and says, damn, that's crazy, still ain't buying an Xbox though. Yes, and you smug son of a bitch, this is the whole point. You don't need to buy an Xbox because console exclusivity is not a thing with Microsoft. Or at the very least, it's not as big of a thing when we're looking at these 3 games in April of this year. That's the whole beauty of freedom. You don't need to buy Xbox in order to play these games. You can play them on whatever platform you like, and that is objectively a good thing. Trip Rao responds, this is what happens when your console dies and you put it on a healthy system where people buy games. Well, evidently they aren't buying PlayStation games because the top 3 best-selling games in April were all Microsoft games. Not a single Sony game was in the top 3 best-selling games on a platform. I don't think this is the right time to make the argument that PlayStation gamers buy games. But also, Xbox isn't dead. Just because it's in last place when we're looking at the main gaming platforms, you know, PlayStation, Nintendo, and PC, just because Xbox is in last place, that doesn't mean that the platform isn't without its own merits. Harley says, only brainless Xbox fanboys think this is a win, lol copium. PS5 has every console game, and PC games that matter except Nintendo stuff. So, by your own logic, they don't have every console game, because Nintendo is a console. So, by your own logic, you're wrong. I see that spending all of that time with Mr. J has fried whatever common sense you may or may not have had left. But also, let's use your logic. So, PlayStation 5 has no Nintendo games by your own admission. They have PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 games, so 2 generations of PlayStation, and they have whatever games that Microsoft chooses to bring to their platform. Meanwhile, PC gaming, for instance, has every single PlayStation game, every Xbox game, every Nintendo game, as well as a shit ton of PC exclusives. If you were unbiased and you weren't a corporate shill, you would truly be on PC if this truly did matter to you. But it actually doesn't matter to you, does it? All you're doing is just shilling for PlayStation. Maybe next time, if you think with your brain and not your fanny or your baseball bat, you might actually come to a decent conclusion. CB Wolverine says, notice how Xbox isn't getting any PlayStation 5 games. Okay, what about the PC? Like, you notice how the PC is getting basically every important new PlayStation 5 game? Like, you're unironically treating Sony being anti-consumer to Xbox gamers as a W for PlayStation. I could not imagine being in this mindset. Moses 8 Dirt says clearly the movie moved a shit ton more units, and he's referring to Minecraft here. Well, considering that Minecraft, even before the movie was even announced, was already one of the best-selling games of all time, as well as the fact that Minecraft was still beaten by a remaster of a 20-year-old game, almost, I really don't think that the movie generated as much hype or additional revenue as you expected. Especially since, once again, Minecraft was at number 2. It was beaten by a game that had no movie hype surrounding it, and it was a remaster of a game that is almost 20 years old. So, what's your point? By your logic, new Mario and Sonic games would be the best-selling games on PlayStation because of the movie hype, but that isn't how that works. Mafias replies, and I'm sure that if PlayStation released their games on Xbox, they would be bestsellers too, but unfortunately that will never happen. This is hilarious for 3 very good reasons. You genuinely think that new PlayStation games would topple fucking Minecraft of all things. Minecraft has sold more units than the PlayStation 5 has. I really don't think that's the case. Also, Sony is already releasing PlayStation games on the PC, meaning that Xbox gamers don't even need to wait for them to come to the Xbox, they could just switch to PC and play them that way. Also, funnily enough, you're saying that Sony will probably never bring these games to Xbox? So, you're admitting that Sony is anti-consumer towards the Xbox marketplace. Like, you yourself are trying to defend them whilst also admitting that they're anti-consumer. You're a fucking joke. Valuable Rabbit says Minecraft is a garbage game for garbage people. Considering that it was the second best-selling game on PlayStation in April of this year, I really wouldn't be making the argument that Minecraft is a garbage game for garbage people. Because, by your own logic, PlayStation gamers are also garbage people. But hey, that would require self-awareness, wouldn't it? Darren says, this is not a W for Xbox at all. PlayStation users are getting the best of both worlds right now, even if those games are old. Well, I've already gone over in the start of the video why it's a W for not just Xbox, but also a W for everyone. But the funny thing about your statement is that, once again, by your own logic, PC gamers are the real winners. Because with PlayStation gamers, you have like 2 generations of PlayStation and then whatever scraps you can get from Microsoft and Steam. Meanwhile, PC gamers, via emulation or just PC ports of games, have access to basically every single PlayStation game, every single Microsoft game, and every single Nintendo game. And we also have way more exclusives than you will ever hope to have, in addition to having things like fan games and mod support. So again, if you were to take an objective stance on this whole debate, you would be in favor of the PC. Cobe Forever says, what exactly does Microsoft get if no PlayStation 5 exclusives cross over? Well, the Xbox gamers don't get the games, which is anti-consumer, and also Sony gets less revenue, because they are losing any potential customers that they would have had on the Xbox platform. Not to mention, Microsoft would likely earn a small cut of any revenue generated from PlayStation games being sold on the platform, meaning that this benefits everyone. Sony gets way more money, Microsoft gets a little extra money for basically fuck all work, PlayStation and PC gamers win because more and more PlayStation games will be made with the additional revenue generated, and Xbox gamers win because they are playing PlayStation games on their platform without needing to buy a PlayStation 5. Again, it really doesn't take much to understand this. Like, take your head out of Sony's ass and take a look at the bigger picture. Blurdrek says, I don't know what you're trying to say here. One of those games wasn't even built from the ground up by Microsoft, and the other 2 are just new. Today I learned that literally every single PlayStation game was made by Sony. They don't hire fucking companies. They don't have the legal rights to companies like Insomniac. What's that? Insomniac Games made the Insomniac Spider-Man games? No, silly, it was Sony who did it, obviously. But also, the other 2 games are just new. You would have a point with Elder Scrolls since it came out like 2 weeks ago or some shit, but Forza Horizon 5 has been a thing since 2021. It's really not that new, my guy. And here we have my personal favorite one from Dark Portal, I think that's what his name is, saying, get it straight, it's Microsoft Corporation now, the name Xbox is dead. Irrelevant, no one cares. Let me say it one more time, Microsoft Corporation. Well, evidently PlayStation gamers care, because the top 3 best-selling games on PlayStation in April were all Microsoft-based games. But also, Xbox is dead? It's only Microsoft. You know, the upcoming Xbox showcase in June, Xbox Game Studios, the upcoming leaked Xbox handheld, and Xbox Game Pass. Like, this is just copium to a high degree. Like, when something goes really well for Xbox or the developers of Xbox, nah, we're just gonna deny that Xbox exists, apparently. My guy, this isn't a horror film. The big scary monsters over at Xbox don't just go away if you cover your eyes and put your fingers in your ears. But anyways, guys, that's all the salt that we have for today. If you appreciate the video, feel free to subscribe to the channel, drop it a like, and consider letting me know what you thought of the video down below. Join the Discord server if you like, tune into live streams if that sounds like your thing, and I will see you all in the next one.